Hello, everyone.
Take it away.
Hello, everyone. Henry Harteveldt from Atmosphere Research Group in San Francisco. My pleasure to be with you and to have this terrific panel with us today. It is my pleasure to introduce Alison Taylor, Chief Customer Officer from American Airlines, Xavier Lagardere. Xavier, I hope I did not mispronounce your surname, VP of Distribution from Lufthansa Group, Jonathan Savitch, Chief Customer Officer at ATPCO, and Blair Koch, who is Senior Vice President, Customer Service and Delivery at Datalex. Sam, I am hearing an echo on here, so I'm wondering if you can fix that before we get too far into our session, please. Chief Customer Officer at ATPCO.
Alison, if you can move your microphone, that'd be fantastic.
Vice President, Customer Service and Delivery. So what I'd like to do is to start our session by asking you all a question as we are looking at the future of distribution, the impact of the pandemic, is what impact you see the COVID crisis having on distribution and the development of NDC. Is to start our session by asking you all a question as we are looking at the future of distribution, the impact.
Did I start?
Sure, Xavier, please.
To say it's Jonathan, actually. Hello, everyone. Greetings from Washington. Sorry, we're not all together in London. I think it's the right way to kick this off, Henry. I think there's sort of a few kind of aspects to that question. The first one for me is my prediction would be the industry is going to focus more on maximizing existing integrations and existing processes and really sort of getting better content out to those that are already plugged in. So airlines that already have NDC connections and channels that are already plugged into NDC, I think will get a bounce out of this. And I think the second most critical aspect is we will start to see different types of content flowing through out to those that have already plugged in. So airlines specifically, it'll be less about bags and seat bundles and probably more about recovery themes, travel advisories. The second most critical thing is so I think there's kind of, a big lesson learned there about NDC. We hope fulfilling its promise to get more relevant content dynamically out to the offer, out to the market, probably ways that we probably recovery themes, advisories. The second most critical thing is, I'm getting a lot of kind of, a big lesson learned there about NDC. We hope fulfilling its promise to get more relevant content dynamically out to the offer, out to the market, probably ways that we probably
folks, we're having a little bit of a technical problem.
I'm getting a lot of kind of, a big lesson there about NDC. We hope fulfilling its promise to get more relevant content dynamically out to the offer, out to the market, probably.
All right, I think that's better. Okay, there we go. So folks, what I'd like to now do, and I apologize for the technical difficulty that we had, is to talk a little bit, Xavier, I know you had a response, so I'd like to get your response to the question about the travel distribution and development of NDC.
Hi, everyone. So Henry, thanks for the question, and sorry for not being this year in London. I think, first of all, we have to start from a customer standpoint. The reality is that business travel, to start with, is not happening at the moment. The proof is we are not sitting together. And this actually may be not only the situation right now, but also create a long-lasting impact on our segments, consuming travel, and on the intermediaries and supplier side. So before going straight to your NDC question, Henry, I would like to start saying, okay, there's actually a clear uncertainty as to how our customer segments will behave going forward, whether leisure customers will potentially be first to come back. They have been over the summer, of course, now post-summer, sort of fading away again. And whether even within business travel or corporate travel, we see new trends like less managed travel, potentially small and medium businesses coming back to business earlier, or even businesses lowering their investment in managed travel and therefore going for solutions that resemble more online practices. So from there, the general trend, and I will pause here so that we can have this more as a conversation, the general trend that we see in the crisis is that of a complete digitization of our channel interface, be it through third parties or be it on our own websites. All these customers trend mean today access to information, access to offers, primarily currently access to safety, hygiene, and travel restriction information, unfortunately, all happens on an airline's digital channels, be it direct websites or API.
Alison, I'd like to get your perspective because in our session just a few minutes ago, you talked about the importance of having a balance between the channels, between direct and indirect, in part because of the customer service burden, as well as third parties' ability to potentially serve their customers through NDC bundles. Maybe you could expand on that a little, please?
Yeah, so we, treasure our travel partners as well, and we want them to thrive. And so we have seen an uptick in our direct channels during this time, as we have a younger audience, and we're experiencing the same as what Xavier mentioned as well. We're seeing unmanaged travel, small to medium and mid-market are the only corporates who are travelling, as the large ones, of course, have travel restrictions still on. And while, of course, we educate them and talk about our clean commitment, as do all the airlines, of course, what we feel is that we are going to see bundles become a lot more important, both for leisure and also for corporate, because they can deliver up to the customer what is required. And when it comes to a corporate customer, it can keep costs down because you'll know what's included and you say to your travellers, that's all that is to be included. So it might be Admiral's Club, it could be preferred seat, etc., auxiliaries. And on the leisure side, we're actually seeing a lot of movement quicker than we ever saw pre-COVID as well, because it's nearly 90% of our business is leisure. We also find that, of course, because our demographics are younger, they want to do everything on their app, on the mobile, of course, and so we've pivoted quickly for that as well.
So has the crisis been a catalyst for NDC development, even if what you're doing with NDC is different than it was before COVID?
Yeah, we're seeing actually an uptick in leisure agencies and also those that perhaps before were going more down the traditional route, which is absolutely fine. We want people to book in the manner they, feel comfortable with. But actually, I think this has escalated some people's timeline on getting NDC on board. Now, of course, not everyone has the team members that we had prior to COVID. And so it's different between agencies and some corporations, but we've seen actually an escalation in needing NDC because automation is more important, bundling is more important, and it's both for information and also for cost containment.
Jonathan, Blair, I'm curious, you guys work with airlines all over the world. What are you seeing? What are your clients asking you to do that's different now as it pertains to NDC or any of their other distribution efforts?
I think the biggest thing we're seeing is, those airlines that have invested, early in NDC and those channels likewise who've built out the onboarding and infrastructure capabilities are going to get a bit of a bump now, in the sense that they'll be able to more easily consume different content. So I think first and foremost, and you put it correctly, is this kind of crystallizes the things that the industry needs to do. We can't push on every front slowly. We really have to focus and make things possible. So I think leveraging that infrastructure and making onboarding easier will be critical over the next year or two. And I think the corollary to that as well is using NDC capabilities, not so much for bags and seats anymore. I don't think those are quite as top of mind as they might have been a year ago, but really making sure we're communicating safety measures, travel advisories, blocked middle seats, those things that really go to the heart of demand generation and consumer sentiment in travel.
And maybe just add on, I think one trend we are seeing is that customer self-service is critical now. And being able to service a PNR or reservation order, if you will, is critical to kind of take the load down on customer support. So even when you see NDC, I think one of the key things of NDC development would be to have a self-service component of that, or a serviceability component of that. So I think that's one area that the airlines can continue to focus on and build their way out of. So in the future, even that you have a serviceable reservation or serviceable order, I think that could be a huge benefit to the airlines moving forward.
And we've found, we've found also so we have so many unused tickets, Blair, that is needed to be technology has needed to be developed around that. We didn't have that prior to COVID, and we've all worked very quickly to get that done because, we've given $27 billion in refunds, and these unused tickets that are sitting out there need to be able to be moved quickly as well for our customers, and obviously in an automated way. So agree, Blair.
Yeah, and using, if you are issuing vouchers, even, I know this is a little away from NDC, but if you're issuing vouchers, having a way for a customer to use those vouchers in self-service versus having to call the contact center. I think there's a huge customer experience advantage to having that.
Right. One of the things our research has shown is that airlines believe personalization remains an important need and strategy, not just before the crisis, but now and for how they will succeed in the future. I'm just curious how you guys see the role of personalization today. Has it changed from pre-COVID and what you might be doing? And is it going to be as important when we're into a business recovery as it was in the past?
So I'll go first. We believe that personalisation is increasingly important. It's interesting. There is a baseline now that just like security changed forever after 9/11, health and well-being when you travel, of course, now has found a whole new level. And on top of that, though, personalisation, we believe, continues to be key. People expect to be treated as their whole self and for you to understand their profile. And so we're working hard and fast on that as well. And whether it's through our apps or whether it's through actually voice or AI and chat, people want to be recognised and they want you to know their history and for you to provide the service that is relevant to you and not feed you up. For example, if you want to use your points, but say you're not travelling at the moment with Advantage, we feed up restaurants you can use points at or other areas, you might do flowers, etc. If you've never ordered flowers in your life, Henry, we shouldn't be feeding that up to you, right? We should be feeding up to you what is, I don't know, a dog walker for you, etc. You pay on your points. So this relevance is, we think, increasingly important, especially as we sort of paint the horizon beyond COVID.
Yeah, I think one thing I'd comment on that is that personalization through promotions also is like really critical now to bring people to the airline. So when you have that history that you're talking about, Alison, you can pull people to the airline versus waiting for them to come to you and search. So anything we have personalization wise, can add huge advantage, and promotions right now is a big player for all of the airlines, as you know. And if you can have the personalization aspect in that, you can bring a lot of traffic to your airline through the personalization. So I think that's going to be another thing to focus on in the near term.
I think
we're already getting a question from the audience, which is terrific, and it is about the role of self-service, and what it is asking is, how are you managing this in terms of using self-service for flight management, especially to the points that have been made about cancellations, flight changes, refunds, vouchers, etc. Are the platforms you're using or the partners you're working with able to support what you need?
I'll start with, what we did to make sure that we could provide automated refunds with working with ATPCO. They were just, and this was for all airlines, not just for American. This is things we need to do for our customers as an industry. So I believe that now we have self-service and touchless, which sort of go hand in hand because of COVID. And we're also working with TSA on this as well. And there's a lot more to come on that. We're also trialling our biometrics even for bag drop at the moment. You'll also see biometrics soon in our lounges, et cetera, and beyond. So I think you'll find that this both self-service and touchless experience go hand in hand. And some partners are up to it and others are really helping us. IATA are helping us actually at the moment with a few items as well, just to make sure that we're all doing this together for the customer as well. But I know that Xavier would be able to talk about this as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alison. Well, from my point of view, I would say, from our point of view, it's a glass half full, half empty. I would say, and probably in fairness to a customer's perception, it's never going fast enough. We have sometimes systems that take weeks rather than days to adapt, and that there's always room for improvement there. Of course, when we introduced over the summer in a really crisis emergency mode, we introduced new things, new products like Bring Me Home Guarantee, making sure that we would take the people away from their destination in case a COVID outbreak would prevent them to stay. That could only be rolled out over digital channels in a matter of then a few days for customers to be able to benefit from the new feature. So, when it comes to the channels at large, including those of our partners, being ready for all the new offering and all the new servicing possibilities that pop up as a result of the crisis, I think we also have to be realistic that it doesn't yet go fast enough for customers to always find it easy to access, easy to maintain. And as a result, I think we have to, and certainly as Lufthansa Group, we do put a lot of effort into making sure that our IT providers and our systems and processes rather deliver enhancements in a matter of days for the wider community, including the community of our travel partners who have a hell of a lot of work right now managing customer refunds in the first place, as well as schedule changes maybe, or passenger rebooking. And for us, it is very important that those travel agent partners are also able, through our digital APIs, to access those servicing capabilities. Actually, to conclude on that notion, today I'm breaking the news here as a preview in this festival. We will be announcing together with Siemens, so a very large corporation, that we're able to service and their entire managed travel over a direct NDC connection, together with Concur, together with Travel Fusion, fully integrated within their TMC's front and back office flows. And though that goes a long way to proving that when everyone aligns, as is the case here between 4 or 5 providers, including us, the airline, then actually the servicing workflows do work and are in place to enable a very large multinational corporation to service travel on the modern flow and therefore access the modern offering. But it still takes some effort. Let's also be realistic here.
I think Xavier is bringing up a critical point here, which is really one about industry agility, right? So, we're naturally biased towards interoperability and redundancy. That's, of course, at the core of anything in aviation. But we're in a period now where there is so much changing so quickly. So we have to make sure, and in this case, NDC is a key facilitator in this, but it's not the only one. So we have to be able to take all advantages of the NDC pipes and we have to make sure batch changes, cancellations, emergency waivers, et cetera, also flow through all other methods of distribution. And that's something that I think historically has been a perfectly logical problem in our industry, and it's one we now just simply can't afford. So one of the changes we've tried to do is, get things out in the market that may not be fully ready for everyone, but get a minimum viable product, be it a new standard or a new type of retailing content, get it out, test and iterate, rather than go sort of the traditional design, develop, deliver, scale. We don't have the luxury of those kinds of processes anymore. So I think that's probably, in my mind, the biggest lesson learned from COVID, and it's hard to imagine us going back from that ever.
Right. So that's actually, I want to segue from that into something related to it, which is innovation itself. Everyone is, to Alison's point, we've all had to say goodbye to team members. Revenue is down, budgets are smaller, pressure is higher. How has the role of innovation within your organization changed as it relates to your distribution strategy, your digital strategy? Because some feel that right now innovation is a luxury. Some feel that innovation is essential. But as Jonathan just said, the way we do things is different. It's no longer necessarily trying to get it perfect. Maybe it's get the minimal viable product out there and iterate on an ongoing basis.
Let me take a first go at it, Henry. I would say if innovation means rapid cycles, adaptation, flexibility, then there's never has been such an innovative period as right now in the airline industry. The current period has forced us, but also enabled us to be laser focused on solutions, to do away with lengthy committee discussions before coming up to decisions. And so in that, I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a blessing, right? It's a very severe crisis that affects us all. Still, in certain ways, it's enabled us to become concrete and get processes in place to make fast decisions or reject proposals in a matter of days. We measure now, basically we at the Lufthansa Group, we measure things based on return on investment, on the time to repay, right? It's not that we say no to everything. We just need to make sure that things have a very fast return that enables customer value. With these two angles, how long does it take for the investment to be repaid? How much customer value does it deliver? We can approve or deny any project. That's going a long way to enabling fast innovation.
Is it more incremental innovation, or is it game-changing innovation, or a mix of both at Lufthansa Group, Xavier?
I wouldn't qualify it at this stage because, whether it's game-changing or incremental, the future will tell. It's constant.
Alison, what about at American?
Yeah, we're using the MVP approach. I think I gave you an example, when we talked before, Henry, of our touchless kiosk and how quickly and swiftly we rolled that out. That would have taken months in the normal world. I find that probably like Javier was alluding to, we're prioritizing much quicker, and everyone is sort of crystal clear about what our priorities are. And that is obviously to improve the customer trust and confidence in travel, and also then to, frankly, delight them when they are travel. We judge ours through LTR, likelihood to recommend, through our customer lens as well, because if we are pleasing our customers, that will bring the return. We also, of course, do it through the lens of how we can improve the life of our flight attendants, our pilots, gate agents. When you think about small things, like we're now all requiring the mask, and we have under 1% of our customers who choose not to wear a mask, and you think that we can now just digitally, the flight attendant can digitally just tell the gate agent, and we can solve for that quickly and without delay and without disruption. These things are important for our team members, like for our customers. And so it's come about because of COVID, but agility, MVP approach, and prioritization judged through LTR. And I'm not sure we've been disruptive yet, but my goodness, we have been so much quicker than normal. And I think we've leaned on our partners more. IAG and BA or JAL and Qantas, etc. We've really come together with One World and led by Rob Gurney. And I think all of us will have to be leaning on our partners more, because as we come out of this, a small airline, and we need to innovate together. For example, we're going to be doing one single face to the customer on behalf of BA and others in North America. And that's something that we had been discussing for a long time, but COVID got it going. And while it's not technology driven, it will be enabled by technology.
Is an unintended consequence of having smaller teams the ability to get things done perhaps faster because maybe there's less bureaucracy, shall we say, and a shared need for survival, but whether it's between your partners, whether it's between distribution partners, vendors, et cetera?
We've actually empowered the team more. It's just happened naturally, intrinsically, as we had to move so fast. We can't overmanage that or micromanagement, and we wouldn't want to do that anyway. And I think it's really helped unlock the potential as well. And we won't go back, and we're often talking about this now as well. Let people get on with it. They're the experts, and if we make a few mistakes, well, we make a few mistakes, right?
Blair?
And I think you said it before, Henry. It's this, I think we were historically, it's, perfect is the enemy of the good. And when you're in a crisis mode, I mean, when this first started just on consumer sentiment, we were looking at 12 or so different aspects, everything from middle seats to cleaning measures, to masks, to travel advisories, to airport things. 12 things is too hard to maintain at an industry scale. It's, research was manual. So we started with 12 and then kind of whittled it down to 5, in conversations with, the likes, of course, of American and Lufthansa. But it's that, you have to start somewhere, iterate from there, pivot again. There's no sort of getting it right, once for a year or two at a time. We're all in a quarter to quarter mentality, and we've just got to accept that is the way it's going to be for at least the next year. I'd argue, that it will be like that indefinitely.
But to your question, Henry, I wouldn't say it's a direct factor of team size. That would be unfair, right? It's not because there's less people around. Actually, it's rather probably common objective. To more natural alignments, and then possible empowerment, delegation to self-organized teams, not a factor of size.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Maybe one comment I'd make, Henry, being a business partner for several airlines, one of the things we're seeing is the need to have a great partnership with all of the business partners. I know Alison kind of addressed the side of the airline partnerships, but also I think technology providers having to step up, change the way, we've had to change the way we do our processes with our customers. We've had to adapt the way to what their needs are. And I think becoming even a one team partnership wise across the airline and the technology partners are critical through times like this. And I think, those good business partners have been able to adapt to what the airline needs and understand what their business is going through right now. I think we've done that, at Datalex, but I see it even with other business partners that we work with. We've had to, because of the declining team sizes in the airlines, we've had to work with other business partners more closely to deliver things for the airline. And I think that's if the airline can put together a good team like that across business partners, they can accomplish things real quick. And again, to echo what everybody's saying is I do think innovation is absolutely a necessity moving forward. This need to try things quickly, there's this term fail quickly, but it could be succeed quickly. And you can see all the iterations that the airlines have gone through: middle seat, no middle seat, change fees, no change fees. And you have to be able to adapt to that really quickly. And that hasn't been something the industry's been good at, but this has definitely brought out, the crisis has brought out the need for it and the ability for the airlines to actually make it happen.
So how do we keep this newfound agility going forward? You know, Jonathan just said it's going to be a quarter to quarter mentality for a while. Our research shows that the airline industry anticipates on average, they think right now it's a 3.1 year timeline until recovery, but could be longer, maybe it's shorter, we don't know. But if we are living in a shorter time frame, shorter horizon, how do we keep the need for agility there, and how do we become even more agile when some of the systems we use are not the most flexible?
That's a good one. I mean, I think the thing that jumps out most at me for me is we can all identify quickly, you know, when a pandemic begins. We all know where we were in January, February, March. I don't think recovery is going to have that same sort of, you know, condensed time period. You'll have region by region dynamics, segment by segment dynamics. So, you know, it's likely sort of, you know, that steady, more of a, you know, steady curve out. So I think that's going to be crystallizing for us. And the second point I think I'd make is, you know, if we were to have this conversation a year or two ago, we'd be talking, you know, more about like infrastructure pipes, the technology connections themselves. But that's actually not what we're talking about now. The industry has already invested and, you know, made the investments on the infrastructure part. Now we're talking about what to put through the pipe. So I'm not sure the kind of, you know, our systems can't keep up argument is still really relevant. The reality is we're delivering a lot of content to a lot of travelers at scale in multiple modalities and multiple languages, you know, in, you know, real time or close to real time. So I think the good news, if there is any these days, is, you know, those investments can now be leveraged to accelerate recovery, however that timeline presents itself.
So
Bill,
look,
sorry,
let's just imagine vaccine is here and we are starting to see business recovery. What's next? What becomes more important for this industry as it relates to distribution? Is it refining the partners we work with in terms of travel agencies, TMCs, et cetera? Is it building out our digital B2C digital direct? Is it NDC or one order? Is it something else?
Henry, I would, sorry, Blair, just go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna, as a comment, you probably can take it from where my comment's gonna start. I think obviously we've seen that distribution is disrupted in the sense that, you know, history is not a predictor of what the future is gonna be. And a lot of our models in the industry are based upon historical performance from pricing and demand, and that disruption is real right now. And I think all of the airlines were thinking of dynamic offers / dynamic pricing prior to COVID-19, but kind of easing into it. I think this is one that could accelerate. Innovation will play a big role in this, but the need to be able to adapt now to the new demand curves, whatever they turn out to be, and be able to adapt really quickly, let's call it in real time, and being able to provide offers that are contextual back to our personalization and then priced right in real time to maximize revenue. We're just not well set up yet as an industry to be able to take advantage of that. And I think that's where a lot of innovation will occur. I think there's you know, a catalyst for that change right now. And I think all the airlines are going to have to aggressively go after that over the course of the next 1 to 2 years.
Xavier, you were going to comment. So
well, I can really build on top of where Blair left it. So you know, it's really about making sure that we keep the flexibility that we were forced to adopt during the crisis. So if I wish to keep two things, you know, comes the vaccine post-crisis, like you were inviting us to think about, I would like to keep the flexibility at the core, which we have currently. You know, when it boils down to network planning, being much more adaptive, crazily adaptive right now, but to a certain extent, we will need for it to remain flexible. And that applies then to all the stacks coming up on top of this within an airline, be it the offering strategy onto the composition of our channel partnerships, onto the way we address and relate to our trade partners, down to the way we take our customer needs. That's one thing, this flexibilization, alternative building at every layer of the value chain. And the second thing is really it sounds like obvious, it's really about working, starts with the customer and work backwards. That I think is something we do now, and we have never done to that extent as an industry. And that's something we should really keep and cherish going forward, be it to personalize our offerings like we were saying before, but also simply to share the right piece of information at the right point in time for that given customer in that given context. And so that those two things in my head, they're one at the very top of the value chain, that's the customer, and one sort of at the bottom, this inner core flexibility of the airline mechanics that I want to make sure we keep. Those two are the two core things that I think should be preserved, should be kept out of the crisis.
And just to clarify, Xavier, when you speak about the mechanics, I presume you're referring to the mechanics of the technology and the systems and so on, not the aircraft mechanics, correct?
That's right, yes.
Yeah, okay, good. So we have another audience question, and it's an interesting one. You've all spoken about the benefits that NDC has provided, either as the airlines or Jonathan and Blair, to your clients who are using NDC. So my question is for Alison and Xavier. First, are your partners working with NDC as well? And the second half of the question is, whether it's a partner or not, do you feel that there we will start to see, if you will, the haves and have-nots of airlines, because NDC could benefit the carriers that are using it, and those who have chosen not to or are far slower could potentially suffer?
Yes, so our partners definitely are doing NDC, and for example, British Airways and Iberia are well down the track with that. Qantas, of course, well down the track, and so as is JAL. And so we're also now working with, of course, our two alliances that we announced, JetBlue and Alaska, and we'll be actually we're just seeing them in Seattle next week in regards to NDC. So I think the answer is that yes, our joint businesses are already doing that, and then our two, both North and East alliances here in North America will be as well, because I think it's important. I do think you're going to see haves and have-not. And I think actually COVID's escalated the need for the other airlines maybe to come on board as well. We also hope that many of the agents don't try and protect status quo. They've worked within a similar model for a long time in North America, and I understand why. Perhaps this need will also help them to see this need of COVID and getting through COVID and the cost control that NDC can assist with, etc., and how they can serve up to their customers. Rich content as well, and of course Jonathan's the expert with that with Routehappy. But we do think you're going to start seeing haves and have-not. But all our partners are having it. We're all on board with that as well. In fact, we have calls every week with our partners on this. Yeah.
Okay, great. Xavier?
I would agree with the fact that potentially the investment, the pre-crisis investment in NDC, in modernizing our partners' landscape, leads to a increased competition. And sorts of, you were talking about the haves and the have-not. I think this is the time also to harvest the benefit for the benefit of our customers and our partners alike, and create a productive value chain, as opposed to the value chain that was there before, maybe. And yes, indeed, it might reinforce the dynamics that and here I would clearly speak on our name as the Lufthansa Group. Some have been early investing and now see that the stack is ripe to deliver offerings and information in a time to market that becomes at least decent.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, I would say, you know, it sounds a little cliche, but I think we have to consider, you know, NDC a journey, not a destination. So I don't think there's kind of like, you know, this perfect end state where there are haves and have-nots, but certainly those airlines that have been, you know, the leadership airlines that have kind of been, you know, hacking their way through the jungle to make this work will undoubtedly have an early adopter advantage, as well they should, and that, you know, at the risk of sounding like a sycophant, you know, includes Xavier and Alison particularly, as well as others. So for sure that's going to help. I think to the extent we're now going to look at this at an industry level, it needs to be easier for small and medium-sized airlines to get on. And we often forget, but we really shouldn't, it needs to be easier for small and middle-sized sales channels to consume this content. They should not need, you know, dozens of developers and months of time to consume an API. The rest of the e-commerce world does not need that. Neither should flight shopping. So I think there should be a real call to action for us as industry leaders to make that standard more easily consumed, more easily scaled and adopted. And we haven't quite gotten that right yet. And I suspect that will be a big focus in the next several quarters.
But Alison, you said earlier, and Xavier, I'd like to get your thoughts too, that in American's case, you've seen a heightened interest and adoption by leisure agencies of
right.
the American NDC APIs, and, you know, obviously not asking you to share anything confidential, but are these more the small to mid-sized agencies that are doing it, or are they at the higher, you know, upper end of the, you know, upper half of the agency community mix?
Across the spectrum, but on the whole, they're medium to small. So just like with our first corporates to take on NDC were medium to small as well, right? Because they're more agile, more willing to actually just look at it differently, frankly, than having a traditional travel manager and travel program. And also they're not the size to need that. And so we also saw international accounts move first. So, for example, we saw our accounts in Brazil, China, etc. They were the first movers on leisure NDC, and that often surprises people. But, you know, they're just willing to take it. They want to access our content. And we do a lot of training because, for Jonathan's point, quite right. A lot of it, to enable this, you have to do a lot of training. Our team under Neil Guerin go in, show them how easy it can be, and also assist them even beyond, and also even introduce them to aggregators or Fairlogics, etc.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, Henry, as far as we're concerned, I would say it's a bit more across the board, really. So it doesn't average into small and medium. We also have large to very large partners onboarding, as well as actually, maybe contrary to American, we had adoption also primarily in our domestic markets, plural domestic markets. The trajectory, though, is probably similar. We started with leisure partners, those partners that were used to multi-sourcing, to different inventories, to new point-of-sale solutions, then on to online, OTAs have all joined in, then on to, you know, OTA-like corporate travel, the likes of Trip Actions or Travel Perk that have also afterwards connected. Then on, and you know, in this journey, the obvious nut to crack was still large corporate travel for very large corporations, where the systems and processes were very intricated with some of the legacy systems. So from that perspective, our announcements with Siemens is a very good showcase that it can be done also at that scale. And in terms of the spectrum, and I finish with this, it's really across the board in the sense that next to the very large aggregators that power now for us very large amount of transactions, we have also worked with startups, Flyla and Flyin, where a few of the many startups which we have engaged on, which deliver volumes that are a fraction of what we do with larger aggregators. In total, we have more than 100 connections now from technology and companies and direct connects alike. And so to bring a bit of a contrarian view to Jonathan's earlier point, I don't think that scale and size on the travel partners end matters. It's as easy for a small as a large one to access and connect, not directly, but through one of the aggregators which we work with.
Interesting.
Javier raises a great point. You know, that there is for us, you have the smaller medium that I mentioned, and then at the top end, we have our big TMCs, OTAs, of course, who have been connected, and the Amadeuses of this world and Travelport, etc., for quite a while. And then for us in North America, there's a little bit of a gap. We're starting to do a lot of trials with the bigger corporate accounts, which is great, right? Using our corporate customer advisory board we have. But that's a nice win for Javier with Siemens. Well done.
Okay, good. So there's a question about the channel mix. Excuse me. Do you see a fundamental change emerging post-crisis in your channel mix? Does it become more consolidated, or does it remain highly fragmented as we get through the crisis and enter the period of business recovery, whenever that may be?
All right, thank you. Well, I honestly, I don't know if it's going to be more or less fragmented. What's for sure, it's changing. It's changing to more digital, be it direct or through APIs, and that's not necessarily driven by us. That's again driven by the customers that have kept traveling during the crisis, and now new patterns that we see emerging, new needs for real-time information. Prompt both sides of the ecosystem to say, I'm going to work over there. So that we see. It's a bit early to say there's a big consolidation play out there, although of course we might expect it, but it's, I would say, from today's standpoint at least, can only be a forecast.
Okay.
Yeah, we're seeing in North America there is a lot of consolidation on the travel partner side, and that's going to continue. There's another big TMC probably be announcing soon, and so that type of consolidation, it will be an interesting trend going forward. We would definitely see more direct business because of the age of our customer. We believe has lowered for several years and beyond that probably, and also because of that leisure twist that we talked about as well. And because of the leisure strength at the moment, our network is following that demand. So we're the largest into Aspen. We're by far the largest in the Caribbean and Mexican beaches, etc. And therefore, that also will mean that we will continue to get stronger and stronger in leisure as well. And we actually see that we're seeing a rise in package demand. That helps what we're talking about on the NDC bundle side. And that package demand also is starting to return even for next summer, working with the cruise lines. Now, I know CDC has not lifted in North America, the no sail, obviously, ban they have, but they will. And you might have seen the last few days on the TV in regards to all the CEOs advocating for that and with regulators in DC. So we actually believe that there'll actually be a rise in both, obviously, digital channels, anything to do with leisure and younger customers, and anything to do with the sunshine or the ski destinations. And we also think that we're going to see a return for that longer haul business pent up. I'm Australian. I currently can't fly to Australia without a 2-week quarantine, and that looks like it could be in place for months and months longer. And so there may be that pent-up demand, and so we've returned our flights to Australia mainly for cargo, and cargo is increasingly important to us. But we actually see that there will be a pent-up demand for some of the longer haul flights as well.
Maybe one comment, Henry, is that definitely we're seeing, to echo what Alison and Javier said, a digital demand and a direct demand. And I think that's, as an outcome of the behavior of the customer, but also it's really good for the airline because you can be in control of the offer, and even through the NDC channel. So just like to highlight that with that demand to direct, you can be in control of the offer, which can allow you to offer more contextual, again, and personalized content. And so I think that's not only is it an outcome of this, but I think it's a good direction for the airlines to go.
Very good. Okay. Another audience question just came in. As the GDSs aggregate airline content into their agent desktop solutions, do any of the airlines see this as posing challenges to you in terms of how you display your products or sell through that channel?
No, as long as there's full content, we are comfortable with that as well. I think that for us is as a nice next step, nice phase. We see it in a positive light.
Xavier?
Well, I would say it's an increment, and while we tend to design things for fast time to market in digital channels in the first place, any incremental reach that can be provided if the product fits is of course welcome. At the end of the day, what we want to make sure about is that customers get access to, again, the right information at the right time and the place they need it. So that is of course welcome.
Okay, all right. We have another question that came in, and it's regarding some of the new aggregators such as Travel Fusion. Is there a new type of strategy needed to work with these organizations, especially as we still have some channels that are based on Edifact, and the need to, again, be more agile, offer the bundles that people want, etc. Are there winners and losers here?
From my point of view, early to say if there's winners and losers. The good news is there are many. As I said before, more than 100 connections as far as we're concerned. So there's a lot of alternatives for airlines and travel partners to pick and choose from. So that's the good news. The strategy is to make sure that we maximize access to our offering in that digital way.
We really welcome the Travel Fusion and others. I actually think they keep it moving and moving. Probably they push the pace a bit as well. They challenge what we've been doing in the past with NDC. We enjoy it, and actually the same. We actually just want to be able to provide all the booking channels that anyone wants to book through. And this is just another booking channel, really, frankly, in the end. And so it's a good thing.
Yeah. Alison, do some of these new entrants or, have an advantage over older, more established channels, shall we say? Because they're less reliant on older pipes?
Look, some of them are able to be a little simpler for connection purposes. Let's just say that, yes, because people are iterating, right? People are improving as they go. But I actually think that was the point in regards to saying, like, if you're a Travel Fusion, then you might have, if your older competitors want to be in the game, it pushes them to come up and be as easy to do business with as well.
Okay.
I think given where we are, I mean, just the practical reality is that no one can really afford to ignore any corner of the market. So the question is less about, do I only do channel X or only do channel Y? The question really is, how do we make sure, however shoppers shop, however content is accessed, that the right information is presented, fully and comprehensively and comparatively. And I think that kind of convergence is normal. I always sort of liken this to, the way we connect in our personal lives. You've got, your cell phone, you've got, Wi-Fi at home, and there are use cases for a little bit of everything.
Right.
And I have a feeling, for our industry, it's going to be like that for a while.
So let me ask this. Let's say it's 3, 4, 5 years from now. So, and let's just assume we are, again, business recovery or maybe even recovered. What do you think is going to be the biggest change in how, for Xavier and Alison, your airlines are distributing, and for Blair and for Jonathan, how you are helping your clients with their distribution what's the biggest thing that's going to be different a few years from now compared to, let's just say today?
We believe that the traditional models that we see today, we will have moved further down the track significantly with NDC. We believe that people will be able to have access to content in a way that they wish as well globally. And we also believe that we'll be far more digitally savvy when it comes to everything being self-service, and I do mean mostly self-service and also touchless as well. So we envisage a time when our distribution will probably be a lot more agile, and that we'll be offering, as I mentioned with Genera, a partner, offering everything across the travel journey. Not just curb to curb for an airline, but from the booking of an Uber or a car right through to airline, hotel, etc. And that there'll be a lot more of that, and you'll be able to check in with us, then check in to a Hyatt hotel at the same time on the same apps. So that just ease of doing business as well.
I do think that pricing will change going forward over the course of the next 2 to 5 years. The traditional way that airlines do pricing and product determination, so what products go to the customer and then ultimately the price, so what we've been calling dynamic offers, I think that will change pretty dramatically over the next couple of years. I think I mentioned it earlier, but I think there's been a catalyst for that to occur at maybe a little quicker pace. It was in the works for years in the industry, but now it's a little bit quicker pace. I think that might be one of the biggest changes that could occur over the course of the next couple of years.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I might even go one step further and say I would expect in a few years we don't really talk about plumbing, right? We'll just take as a given that offers flow in a myriad of different ways: direct connect, NDC, direct channel, TMC. The industry will kind of solve for that, and I think we're well on that path. And our conversations will be far more about the accuracy of the pricing and our pricing monitoring, right? It'll be more dynamic, more continuous, more personalized, and the comprehensiveness of the offer, its targeting capabilities, the persona that it drives, et cetera. I'm kind of going to come out with that bounce.
Henry, to wrap it up, I will give you two answers, or maybe two wishes. The wish for the long term is that we have remained agile and that our innovation cycles have kept close between our internal teams as well as with our partners, and that potentially we even work with our partners in design offers that match their needs and their found customer needs. That's my wish for the long term. For the short term, and here I just echo what Alison was saying with the impossibility to travel to Australia right now. We will have gone off this crisis if our business is sustained. One way to get there is to enable pervasive testing as opposed to quarantine measures. And I wanted to mention this today because this is one of the areas that keeps us extremely busy at the moment, working with all the regulators and public affairs interactions that we can have to ensure that testing becomes the norm instead of quarantine. And we're not there yet. But if there's a future in 5 years, it will have been, because testing has been made possible in the meantime.
Yeah, exactly the same. Sorry, however, we've got we've done RFPs with over 150 rapid testing companies. So agreed totally, and I think it'll be an answer of both pre-screening and testing as well before the vaccine, of course, is able to scale as well. That's the first step.
Right. We saw that Lufthansa has announced a rapid testing program that you're going to offer your premium customers first and business class customers. I'm not sure if it's just in Germany or if it's going to be worldwide, but I did see that.
Right.
Yeah, totally agree. And you can't be agile without multivariant testing. I think Xavier's hitting exactly the right call to action.
Okay. Well, folks, we are unfortunately out of time. I want to thank Alison, Jonathan, Xavier, and Blair, which is how I see all of you on my screen, for your terrific insights, for being so generous, not only with your time, but with your thoughts and perspectives. I want to thank everyone who has been watching. I want to thank those who submitted questions. We did our best to get to all of the questions that we could. And I hope that everyone has found value in this. I want to thank Terrapin again for hosting World Aviation Festival and allowing me to be a part of it. And with that, Sam, I'm going to turn it over to you to wrap up.
Yeah, many thank you for all for attending. Have a good evening. Thanks. Bye-bye.